What's up, War Report family? It's your boy C Dub. Is Hugh Freeze's reputation as a QB developer on the line in 2024? We will discuss that as well as Auburn basketball. Where do they go from here after the loss to Kentucky and Jalen Williams' injury? We'll discuss all that and more in today's edition of the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden Cast Iron. C-Dub, Ike Joe, Be Will, by G. You are now listening to.
Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Weekend Tailgate, courtesy of Golden's Cast Iron. They have been a sponsor of the Weekend Tailgate for quite some time now, as well as some of our firesides. So we definitely want to show them some love. You can show them some love, especially if you're trying to get your weight up or down, depending on what your health goals are. Please head over and use code to goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up, where you can get 15% off weights, or code TWR if you're interested in a fire pit or a Kamado grill. Again, special thanks for Golden Cast Iron for being a sponsor of the War Report. Definitely appreciate the good folks over there. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. You can do us a favor by continuing to share this video, this conversation with other Auburn fans, your friends, co-workers, whoever the case may be. Smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Mike G, tell the people why they need to get a green name and what are the perks and benefits and how they do that.
Yeah, guys, look, we're cranking at the War Report right now. It may be football off season, but basketball is in full swing. Baseball has just gotten started. Auburn is run ruling, people. Gymnastics is still going. They've got a top 15 squad over there in gymnastics as well. We're covering it all. Become a patron to help support the work that we're doing there on that side, helping to elevate women's sports and Olympic sports in general at Auburn. $5.99 a month will get you there. So if you can help us out, these are like micro sponsorships that help keep us going. We also have a new segment called The Mix that we're doing where we sit down with prominent coaches and administrators and former athletes as well, too, to talk about the ongoings at Auburn. You can also help somebody else become a patron by gifting a membership. That gifted membership will give to somebody who interacts with our channel at a high level but hasn't made the decision to come on over. So hit that gifted membership button. You guys have been doing a great job with that. We're giving away a mug. We do this every live stream. We love doing this at the War Report. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments to get into that giveaway. So looking forward to doing this. We're going to pull at the 1 hour mark, but you got to be here to win. So hashtag get your weight up, get spelling up to make sure that you can get in there and get that mug. Again, we'll pull at the 1 hour mark. Check us out on podcast. The War Report is on podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, especially Apple Podcasts. The College Loop, the Auburn Express, the Uptempo, and Just a Sec. We're putting out great audio content over there. I had a great conversation with our guy Paul Mahari from UGAsports.com about the new SEC and how Auburn and Georgia will fare without the devil Nick Saban in the conference. So great conversations happening over there on podcasts. You can listen to on your way to work, school, whatever you're doing at the gym. Catch us out on podcasts, doing the Lord's work.
Gentlemen, let's get into today's conversation. Is Hugh Freeze's reputation as a QB guru or developer on the line at Auburn? Let's kind of talk about what Hugh Freeze has done as it pertains to quarterbacks. There's a few that comes to mind. Obviously, Ryan Applin is a name that people are familiar with because two guys associated with Auburn has coached him, that being Hugh Freeze and Gus Malzahn. Ryan Applin had a lot of success at Arkansas State. Hugh Freeze used that opportunity in his 1 year as a head coach at Arkansas State, took the job at Ole Miss, where he actually brought in a QB in year one by the name of Bo Wallace. Bo Wallace actually had a pretty good year, had a good tenure at Ole Miss. Just to give you some stats on him, he threw for a total of 9,534 yards and 62 touchdowns during his time at Ole Miss. He finished in the top 5 in the SEC each year in passing yards, finished second in 2013 behind Johnny Manziel. His best year was in 2014. Ole Miss won 9 games, including the 23-17 win over Alabama. He was followed up by Chad Kelly, who also was brought in from outside the program by Hugh Freeze. Chad Kelly went on and he led the SEC in his first season with them. He led the SEC in passing yards, 4,042 yards, 31 touchdowns. That team won 10 games that season, finished 6-2 in conference play. They lost in overtime to Arkansas 53-52, costing them a chance at playing in the SEC championship. He had injuries in year 2, so his production got cut a bit. That led to, if you remember, a guy by the name of Shea Patterson, who came in that year. He was Hugh Freeze's biggest high school recruit during that time. Ended up transferring to Michigan, but Hugh Freeze's tenure was cut after that. I think that was 2016 by that point. And of course, we know what he was able to do with Malik Willis at Liberty. Fourth guy that he's brought in is Payton Thorne. We all know how Payton Thorne did in year 1. Hugh Freeze has made some staff changes. Hugh Freeze, as rumor has it, he will be calling plays offensively. He brought in Derek Nix to be his OC, who he's had a lot of familiarity with, working with during his time at Ole Miss. So this will be Hugh Freeze's offense moving forward. Hugh Freeze was credited as saying, even on his introductory press conference, he made a statement that I do think he does think he has a gift at developing quarterbacks.
He did say that.
And so with that, gentlemen, I'll throw this to you. I'll start with you, B. In 2024, is Hugh Freeze's reputation as a QB developer on the line, given Auburn's productivity in 2023?
I want y'all to walk with me here. I say no. The reason is, do you put somebody squarely responsible for not being able to develop a player if the player is just not good? Development being the question. If I tell you to develop somebody that's not good at what they do, then are you at fault for not developing them? I don't know. No idea. So my question I would say that Hugh Freeze is on the clock for picking the wrong guy. That is what it is. Identification is what Hugh Freeze is on the clock for in 2024, not development. I don't think Payton Thorne has it. So I am not necessarily upset or like, oh man, he played bad again. We saw him play bad. He's not the guy. If you trot the wrong guy back out there again, now it's on you, buddy. Fool me once. Okay. Fool me twice. I put you back out there after I saw you drop games, throw INTs every time you had a remotely decent game. That's on me, because I may not have known what you were at first. I know what you are now, which is why I say I need to see somebody else get out there and give an opportunity. Other QBs not having the opportunity, that's a much bigger concern to me than whether or not he can develop a guy who doesn't have it as a starter on the SEC level.
Counterpoint. Payton Thorne regressed as a QB overall. Now, there was some debate about whether he had regressed, or whether it was the line or the receivers. But after the bowl game, I think everybody universally agreed he regressed. There was a portion of that was on him. And what am I to believe? This was a 2,500 to 2,800 yard a year passer at Michigan State. He comes here and he regresses by 1,000 to 1,200 yards. I'm not sure all of that regression is Payton Thorne. Now, they fired the offensive coordinator. That's a part of this that cannot be ignored.
Agreed.
Right? There was a system issue that caused some of these issues for Thorne. Now, I'm not advocating that Payton Thorne is a great quarterback. I'm saying I don't think he is as bad as he played because the system issues hurt everybody. And that's on Freeze. So they made a change there. It was clear. They made a change there. Now, to B's point, I get saying that, like, look, man, if a guy's bad, he's bad, but
he's just bad.
The distinguishing this, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. He's distinguishing between what's actual development, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And picking the right guy.
Right.
All that, to me, in my mind, all that goes together. You pick the wrong guy, then, we can't even get to the development conversation.
Right.
So it is all bad in my book. However, I think if you fix the system, you'll see increased production from the quarterbacks that are in the room. And they got to start there. So, this is my opening thoughts on this.
So let me ask you gentlemen this. Who gets named QB1? Does that affect the timetable in any way in terms of, there's always a sense of urgency, but I think there's a little bit of grace given if someone other than Payton Thorne is named the starter going into the next season. Does that change anything?
Yeah, I think the only person that gives you grace in this equation is Walker White. Because you made your bed with Thorne the way you handled last season. Right? Robbie Ashford is gone. He said he wasn't good enough to play quarterback here. You rolled with Thorne. You committed to Thorne openly before the bowl game, essentially saying we're going to 2024 to pay Thorne as our quarterback. And then after the bowl game, immediately had to backtrack on that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an opinion. This is what he said. It's an open, and I was the one who asked the question, like, how does this change the equation for somebody like Hank Brown who went out and played? Like, listen, man, give Hank Brown credit. He went out there in a no-win kind of situation and just played football. Through passes, the receivers looked, better catching balls from him. There are a lot of QBs who go out in those situations and still can't get it done. And he did. But it opened the question. I'm not saying Hank Brown is the next coming. I'm saying it opened the question about if you can have a guy come in cold and play like that was fourth string all year, you got to have an open competition in the spring.
Yeah.
Right.
I have concerns about how they missed this bad on Thorne. If you're telling me it's not more system than player, you missed bad. And I think that should be a worry. You got to know what to do with the players that you have. All this, wait until he gets his player. I get it. But I still want to see some football is football. I still want to see some competency with the guys that you have. And I'm not sure that we completely saw that last year.
No, we didn't. We didn't see it.
The fact be that, to Mike's point, that he doubled down on Payton Thorne given the first portal window, and to Mike G's credit, he mentioned that Auburn's not going after a QB in this first portal window. They're sticking with Thorne, and he confirmed as much when he met with media in bowl prep, right? To Mike's point, he backtracked off of that, but still, you endorsed Payton Thorne. So is he seriously on the clock in terms of improving that room or the production coming from that room in year two?
Yes. He is on the clock for improving quarterback play.
Yes.
But he's not on the clock for making Payton Thorne better. And the only reason I disagree with you slightly, just slightly, Mike, about Payton Thorne, what'd you say? He regressed. He was throwing to 2 NFL wide receivers.
I'm gonna give you the 30 seconds so Mike can retort on that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
He was throwing to 2 NFL wide receivers at Michigan State. 2. I don't think we had anybody that we could call an NFL wide receiver yet based on what they've showed. We have some people with higher ceilings than they got to show last year, but the talent can override system. You can have a wildly successful year just because you've got some superseding talent. I think Peyton Thorne was the beneficiary of that more so than he regressed. I don't think you can play as poorly as we saw him play last year. Is it system? Yeah, maybe. But if you just make a bad throw, you're making repeatedly INTs, pick sixes, it's a problem with you, buddy.
Yeah,
it's a problem with you.
All I'll add is that, look, at the end of the day, if he was supposed to be a guy that you bring in that made people better, that's why you bring in a 2-year starter from another Power 5 school. So the conversation about he don't have the receivers, like the floor was so low that, you know, that's to me, that's not relevant in this conversation because of how bad he played at times. Now, again, there are multiple reasons for that: system, play calling, tug of war, whatever. But you know, that's where I'm at on this, right? He was supposed to be a guy you brought in that made everybody better and raised the floor. The floor was not raised. There were less rushing yards from the QB position. There were barely just as many passing yards from the QB position from him. It just didn't get better. And the bar was already on the floor.
Yeah.
A better system should have elevated what we saw last year. Because over the last 5 games of the season, they didn't even really try to throw the ball. You know, when you're trying and you barely come up with 80 more yards from your starting quarterback than you did the year before with a guy that you didn't really try to throw the ball with, that's wild.
So, Mike, you're mentioning production. Last year's production. What does I mean, obviously anything over what we did last year is improvement, but what shows reasonable improvement in year 2 now that you have your coaches in place, you have your system in place, and the hope is you have your guy in 2024 or a guy who can lead your team in 2024. What does reasonable stats look like offensively from the passing attack?
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple, right? In today's college football, if your quarterback is throwing for less than 2,500 yards, you're going to have a really, really hard time without an exemplary run game. That's today's game. You have to be able to pass the ball at a 2,500 to 3,000 yard a year clip. Or you got to be really, really, you have to have a smash mouth offensive line that can just move people and you can do what you want. 3,000 yard passes are starting to become more and more common in college football because of the way the rules are. And, you know, it's just harder. It's never been harder to play quarterback. To play defense.
Right.
It's hard, man. Like, you know, they protect the quarterback. They do all these things to protect the quarterback. And we've seen a lot of, like, man, Michigan's national championship last year, a little bit anomalous based on what we saw.
Right.
Or what we've seen from you know, previous national champions over the last, like, 8 years. Dynamic offenses are winning the day. But you got to be really good at everything else if your quarterback is going to pass for less than 2,500 yards. So to me, that's where it needs to be. That's what, and that's not common at all. Auburn only has 2 3,000-yard passers in the whole history of the program. Incredible for a squad that's got an undefeated season and played for 2 national titles in the last 24 years. That's crazy. Yeah. So that's where the bar is at in terms of what you're talking about, Caesar. 2,500 or more.
Okay. So in the years where Auburn has gotten close to that production in terms of passing, those have led to being really good years for Auburn.
Yeah.
Right? What does that do for Auburn's season? If they're in that 2,500 to 3,000 window, what does that do for Auburn as a team in year 2, B?
I say we win 7 if we can get 2,500. If we can get to 3,000, we'll win 8. I think we'll win 8 if we can get to 3,000. That means if you are throwing for 3,000 yards in the season, that means you could throw when you needed to. Now, exemplary is, you know, for 1,000 in college. A couple of quarterbacks are going to touch that because they're in the pass happy system and stuff like that. But 3,000 is really like, okay, you know what you're doing here, and you can pick up a lot of yards through the air. If we can count on offense through the air, and we don't have to force it on the ground, we're going to win 8 games. We're going to win 8 games. And the only reason I don't say more is because there are some other teams in our conference now. And when I say now, I mean Texas is on the block. Georgia can still pass the ball because Beck's coming back. We don't know what Alabama's going to be, but we have enough teams in our conference that you can't quite pencil it in as like, yeah, you for sure are going to win. It's like, no, I don't know. It's competitive. This is the most competitive this conference has ever been. So I would like to say if we pass for 3,000, we could win our division. We don't have a division anymore. We could win 10 games. If it was 3 years ago, I would tell you we passed for how many yards? 10 games. But that's not the case anymore. So I say 3,000, a 2,750 is the in between 2,500, 3,000, and 3,000. Then I say we win 7.
Yeah, I would agree that the ceiling is 10 wins if they can pass for 3,000 yards. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to guarantee that's going to happen if they
you still have to account for turnovers. If
correct,
you're throwing at a higher volume, there's different plays that can affect the game.
Yeah, like it raises the ceiling.
Okay.
Right. If you're going to throw for 3,000 yards, you're going to have a chance to win more ball games. So, I agree with Brian in that respect. The stretch of the schedule from Georgia to Kentucky is tough.
Yeah.
Right. Oklahoma at home, Georgia in Athens, Missouri in Columbia, Kentucky on the road. That's one of the hardest stretches in college football.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stretch that's going to define your season, whether you're over under.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the stretch that's going to define whether you're over under because you open against A&M, right? You have a Cal team that you should beat. They're coming to the Plains this time. New Mexico, I don't know, the whole state of New Mexico, like it's something about New Mexico, no matter what the sport is. All right. Arkansas should be beatable again. I mean, there's a chance this team starts 4-0.
Right.
There's a good chance this team starts 4-0. And then you got to go Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky. And Vandy, ULM should be dubs, but Texas A&M, Alabama to finish off the season. To A&M at home, Bama on the road. Auburn has not fared well in Tuscaloosa. But again, I don't know that we talked about this with Paul over on the Auburn Express. I'm not sure anybody's scared of DeBoer's Alabama.
They don't have a reason to be.
I don't think anybody's scared of DeBoer's Alabama.
Like, they have to prove. Bama has to prove themselves.
Yeah. Man, I'm sorry. After what we saw, the mass exodus of players, and I'm not. So I know that some coaches have done it, but I'm just not sure that what he accomplished in the pack with those guys translates to the SEC because the level of competition is going to be so much higher defensively.
You're playing Oregon almost.
Yeah, his schemes are going to be tested.
You're playing 4 or 5. You're playing 4 Oregons in a season, just about.
Yeah, but honestly, defensively better.
Yeah,
week in and week out. So his schemes are going to be really tested, and I think that Auburn, if they're a 3,000-yard passing team, like B is talking about, they have a chance to go into Tuscaloosa and get that win.
Yeah.
They have a chance to go into Tuscaloosa and get that win if they're passing the ball at a decent clip.
What I will say to this, and then the reason why I agree with you, gentlemen, that his rep is on the line this year as a QB developer is when Hugh Freeze got to Auburn, he addressed just about everything on the offensive side. Auburn already had a good stable of running backs and tight ends. He went to the portal, got a lot of guys out the portal to address the offensive line. Even went to the portal, the first portal window, and got a left tackle. So we have better play along the offensive line. We already know what he did from the high school level, bringing in the kids for wide receiver. And we still got some talented guys at the receiver position. So you've upgraded a lot of the skill positions and line. What's left? QB play. So if Auburn's going to take that step in year 2, we have to see better production. And that starts with Hugh Freeze and Ken Austin taking this offense, this QB room, to the next level. It may not be where you want it to be, but there has to be a progression in year 2.
I would add, Caesar, that we talked often in the preseason about the messaging coming from this coach. What he said, in his opening presser when he talked about being a QB developer. This is the thing that Auburn has lacked. And when they've been able to find a QB, it's been championship time, man. Think about it.
Yeah.
Since the year 2000, Jason Campbell's 2004 season under Al Borges, undefeated, right? Brandon Cox had an 11-2 season.
Yeah.
He gets forgotten in this conversation.
Well, that was after his first year as a starter where he went 9-3.
Right.
Yeah.
They've been into that. I mean, they could have been SEC champions, in 2006.
Yeah, that was the Arkansas. Yeah, Arkansas
and Georgia came in and ran us too.
Yeah, they're always in the when they find a QB, they're always in the conversation. 2010, obviously, they won it all. 2013, that few seconds away and 3 points. 2017, you beat Georgia, you make the playoff.
Yeah,
Jarrett Stidham, probably the best pure passer of all the guys that we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Bo Nix was supposed to be the next guy that got us there. He wasn't able to do it because of the dysfunction around him.
Right.
And some of his own development problems. And your Hugh Freeze, you're just thinking you got to get more out of these average quarterbacks. You're not going to have a stud quarterback every year. Cam Newton started the conversation between like game manager and, game breaker.
Yeah.
Auburn, I think a lot of Auburn fans would be content with just getting effective game managers year in and year out. Because your Cam Newtons, your game breakers, those guys are so rare.
But again, you got to have a good system in place. You can't manage crap, right?
Your system has to be
so you got to have a system in place for that guy to be able to effectively manage.
Would it be fair to say that almost like it would be hard to mess up with Cam Newton at quarterback? Like, is there a system that Cam wouldn't have thrived in college?
I wonder if you just put him back there and tell him to sling the ball like in a
if you don't let him run, just like not let him run.
Like he has to be able to run. Like that's his superpower. He has to be able to run. He could throw crazy.
You force him into
He was a very effective passer in college and when he went to the league until he started hurting his shoulder. But that's not what makes him him. He had to be able to run too.
All right, gentlemen, good conversation. We will definitely see as we get closer to the season and as the season unfolds, what this QB room starts looking like. What are we hearing coming out of spring? What are we hearing going into fall camp? Let's get to some of you guys' comments. We appreciate you being with us. Brad Browning says something to consider. Coach Hugh Freeze put too much faith in his coaching staff. This is on him as a head coach, but last year was the outlier for his head coaching career, in my opinion.
That's true. That's true.
Could be.
It was the outlier. And I want to give him a little bit of slack because you had this much time to find a QB in the portal when honestly there weren't any good QBs in that portal window. You came in, signing day was like in a week and a half. Like the goose is kind of cooked for the signing class when he got in to take the job.
Right.
So some of this could have been the short window and Grayson McCall's academics. I don't know. Here's
what I would say, Brad. This is why I question is his rep as a QB guru is on the line this year. Because if he show improves in year 2, then last year was an outlier. If he doesn't really show improvement, we have a trend going, right?
The trend is starting. I agree with that 100%. This is why the conversation is, what does this year say about him in that regard?
Absolutely. Chris here says Aiden has probably never been in a slump before. He doesn't want to let his teammates, coaches, and the fans down, and it's in his head. We'll talk about that in the next segment. Appreciate that comment there. Lawrence Robinson asked, does this past year count with Payton Thorne since he was mostly under Philip Montgomery?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure Montgomery was the problem. Right. I think that the problem was he brought in a guy who has a history of working with high profile QBs. And there was a tug of war between them on how to do it. And Payton Thorne struggled in part because of that. Mm-hmm. They got to get on the same page, man. I put that more on Freeze than I do on Montgomery. You went out and you hired him and you brought him in here.
He's going to do what he does.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it all comes back to the head coach,
and
right?
Clearly, we know where Hugh Freeze's focus was. It wasn't like Hugh Freeze
was on recruiting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was on recruiting.
So Montgomery just going to do what he does.
Right.
And you hired him to do that.
Right. But if you come in at the last second and you meddle and it doesn't go well, I'm not sure it's that fair to throw Montgomery under the bus consistently if you're going to, again, the tug of war, I'm telling you, had a negative effect on this team. So he realized I got to get rid of him. And then he brought in a guy who's not going to call plays.
Right.
Because he realized he wants to do it his way.
Lawrence Robinson says if we pass for 3,000 combined with our running game, we could win 10 to 11 games.
Yeah. Like, look,
That's the ceiling. That's the ceiling.
On our first opening segment of the mix, I put Auburn ceiling at 7-5. Everybody went crazy, but that's I haven't seen anything that suggests that the passing game is going to get better because nothing has really changed in the QB room. Now you're bringing in a new offensive coordinator, sure, and maybe the scheme gets better, so maybe that helps. But until such a time as I see that has improved, I maintain it's going to be hard for them to win more than 7 games. You're going to pass for 3,000 yards. That's the caveat. Then, yes, the ceiling is 10 to 11, probably closer to 10.
And we've got to give some. Of course, we're going to assume that all the superstar talent we just recruited actually makes a difference. And I know that they're going to be freshmen, but honestly, Cam Coleman looks like I'm on the field and you're better instantly type player. He has that look. Whether it translates or not, we don't know. But right now, he looks like he could be an instant impact difference maker.
Here's what I don't want, B. All the receivers can't catch people. If you play Cam Coleman early and he struggles, I want all those people to be quiet, pipe down. Because it can't. Again, you have a trend of you will have a trend of guys coming here and suddenly they can't catch. No, man, I'm telling you, that's a system issue, or a teaching issue. Or ball placement, the things around the receiver matter. They do. And we've talked to these guys.
Well,
they told
the
us
bowl game proved that. The bowl game proved
they were catching Hank balls just fine.
Yeah, pause.
So I'm just wondering, Cam Coleman, of all the receivers, we talked about this on the mix, Caesar, about which one is more likely to play early. It's definitely Cam Coleman.
For sure. Yeah.
But I don't want to see people throwing him under the bus if he struggles early in a system that is not working for anybody with a quarterback who is inconsistent.
Right.
He put his pinky on the ball. He should have caught it.
Yeah, it was in the stadium. He should have caught it.
It's in the zip code. JJ Brandon says, I'm just hoping for something closer to 65% completion percentage.
Yeah, I think, but again, this is what I'm talking about. That raises the floor at 65% completion percentage. That raises that floor to 2,500 yards. Yeah. At the volume that we know Hugh Freeze likes to throw it. Yeah. And then we're just having a very different conversation. We're, fans are celebrating every weekend if they're doing that.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. Steph Trail says if it's close in fall camp, Hugh should roll with Walker White and build for 2025. This has been Ike's point, basically. He's saying if it's close, I'm going with the younger guy.
As long as they have it figured out. Right. So I can deal with losses. What I can't deal with is dysfunction hurting Walker White's confidence.
Correct.
Don't throw. I mean, this is the calculus I think that every coach has to do when it comes to young players. Freshman QB in the SEC don't fare well. Right. And so don't throw him out there too early and crush his confidence. Like, and this
has been the argument that some have made for Bo Nix, is that did we play him too early?
He should have sat for a year.
You know what I mean? This has been the argument about Bo Nix. Like, give him time to actually develop and figure out the college game.
Unleash him in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he would have benefited from a year on the bench.
Yeah. For sure. Brad Browning says, to further my point that Coach Hugh Freeze was completely hands-off last year's offense, no excuse. He's the head coach, first-year QB under Freeze at Ole Miss, 368 pass attempts, first-year QB at Liberty, 452 pass attempts, Peyton Thorne, 238 attempts.
Yeah. They didn't trust him to throw the ball. That's it. You know, and despite what he said after every game, they didn't trust they didn't trust him to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Some of the pick sixes were like, I mean, they were representative of that.
Right.
That they weren't sure. There was one versus Vandy. Brian, what was the other one? There was one versus Maryland, I think, in the bowl game.
I think those are the only pick sixes.
Yeah,
but
those are the only pick sixes.
Yeah. Was there one at Cal?
He had no.
There was a fumble at Cal.
He had another one. It may have been in the Iron Bowl, but it wasn't caught. It wasn't a pick. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, there were a few close calls there.
Yeah, he had some close calls sprinkled in there, but those are the two that really was just
really weak throws to the flat that were they're like dream pick six balls for DBs.
Yeah,
and again, you bring a guy like Payne Thorne in because as a 3-year starter, if you start him again, he's going in his 4th year starting. He's not the guy that's going to make that play.
Right.
That's how you manage a game. That's how you be the Cam Newton's version of a game manager. You just go out there, you don't lose it for your team.
Right.
You know, and in a close game, a pick six can definitely lose it for you.
Yeah. Good conversation, y'all. Listen, if you're watching on replay, we would definitely want to hear from you. Is this year important for Hugh Freeze as a QB developer? Let us know. But you are watching the Weekend Tailgate. Please be sure to share this video, smash that like button. And if you're new to our channel, please subscribe where you can be notified when we do go live and drop content for you. Guys, we're going to take a break, come back, and talk basketball.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelika-rageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Guys, help us out at the War Report. Become a patron member. These are like micro sponsorships to help keep us going. If you've seen the mix, if you've seen the firesides, if you've seen any of the other live coverage we've been giving you guys on social media, this helps that work to continue. $5.99 a month will get you there. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. This will choose someone at random that interacts with our channel at a high level and give them a month of some of the stuff we put behind the paywall. We're giving away a mug, hashtag get your weight up, in the comments. We're going to pull at the 1 hour mark, so that's about 25 minutes from now. 23 of you guys in here. I'm going to need that number to go up before we draw. So hashtag get your weight up. Make sure you spell that right so that the old algorithm can pull that for us. Check us out on podcasts, the Auburn Express, the College Loop, the Up Tempo, and Just a Sec. Great audio only content for you guys to listen while you go to work, school, or to the gym. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank show sponsor MANSCAPED. Visit manscaped.com, use code RAPPORT. Guys, 2024 is here and in full swing, and it means it's time for a New Year's resolution. Check in with our friends at Manscaped. It's never too late to level up your grooming game and keep your bush tamed. Manscaped's new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page of confidence this year. Whether you're going for a trim or that clean-shaven look, this trimmer has you covered. Trusted by over 10 million men worldwide, now is your time to get a grip on your grooming with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code RAPPORT for 20% off and free shipping. The ball has dropped, but don't drop the ball on your balls with Manscaped.
I like it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
You drop a ball on your balls. That's crazy.
Sounds painful, though.
All right.
What also was painful was yesterday. Auburn basketball.
Yes.
Loses in Neville Arena. The streak ends with Kentucky winning 70-59. This was kind of an uncharacteristic game for Auburn. I think that goes without saying. Auburn shot 30% from the field in this game. 17 of 55, 4 of 22 for 18% beyond the arc. They shot 21 of 30 from the line, was out rebounded by 3 total by Kentucky. But to the story here was Kentucky's points off of turnovers, 23-10. That's pretty much the story right there. When Auburn turned the ball over, Kentucky capitalized off of that. And it's very important when you're playing against a team that can score the way that Kentucky can score, protecting the ball. And there were times where even though Auburn didn't give away, we didn't have a lot of turnovers, but they were just very costly at certain points. Thoughts on this game? I'll start with you, Mike G, your initial thoughts about what you saw. We'll get to Jalen Williams in a minute, but let's talk about just the actual game and what Kentucky did. Kudos to Kentucky by their defensive game plan, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, great basketball environment as always. Neville was rocking. Students were in early. Fans were ready to go. As for the game, where I landed on this one was this team has had some inconsistencies. They just haven't really showed up at home. And this is going to sound like I'm making a bunch of excuses, but hear me out. Trey Donaldson was not full. He was not full 100% going into that game. He had a right forearm injury that looked like it slowed him down. He only played 11 minutes last night, right? They had Denver running point, and Aiden has been struggling, a bit. Jay Will obviously getting hurt kind of killed any chance for a comeback in my eyes.
It took the win out.
So coupled with all that, anytime Auburn started to get on a little bit of a run, these refs were awful. The consistency of the foul calls were baffling. And I'm sitting there in a media section, and we're all looking at each other like, wait, what happened? Janai Broome got mauled on an over the back.
Hey, Williams actually got fouled on that play he got injured on.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and people will look at the stat sheet and talk about free throws and the foul calls. It's not about the number of fouls. It's about the non-calls.
Right.
That were inconsistent with other things that they were calling fouls. Yeah. I didn't understand it. There was literally a play where the Kentucky guy just fell. And they called a foul. And when they showed the replay on the big monitor, we were like, he just tripped over his feet. He wasn't within 6 inches of the guy. In my head, I'm thinking, why isn't this stuff reviewable? These are momentum-killing plays. Now, he went to the free throw line and missed the free throw. And I think that it's up scoring off of that foul call. But in terms of the flow of the game, it just seemed like it was hard. On a night Auburn was already struggling. Any chance at getting back into that game was completely robbed of them by the refs. I don't like to talk about the refs much, but I thought last night was particularly egregious.
B, your thoughts about the game, man?
College refs are always terrible. You just hope to get the least terrible college refs that you can get for that game.
Fair enough.
That's pretty much it. That's all the time. That's all the time. I was disappointed that they didn't allow us to play as physical defensively as we needed to. And like to your point, Mike, inconsistency with those calls. If you can't get close to a guy, if you can't man-to-man somebody up and then you get a strip, now it's a foul call. And there were a lot of those moments where I thought that was just good defense. Those were calls that we were getting when we played South Carolina at home. Those were steals that we were getting when we played Bama at home. But yesterday, those were fouls. You can't do anything about that. To our detriment, where we were most at fault was we missed wide open shots.
Yeah,
first half.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
If they're going to call it that tight, you make those shots. If it's a 5-point game at half, if we're up 5 points, it doesn't matter. You just got to hit your free throws at that point. You can still have trouble defending without fouling, but then it becomes a much tighter game. The chances of a comeback ended because they called it that tightly, yes. Because Jay Will got hurt, absolutely. But make your wide open shots in the first half.
He probably win. He probably win.
You win the game.
I'll add this, B. Chad Baker-Mazar did a lot of good things in that game, but in the first 10 minutes, he did some things that just, I mean, you in a matchup of this magnitude, you just can't do. Right? Like, it was literally just doing too much.
Yeah.
You're on a fast break, just make the easy pass and get the easy layup. The behind the back, like, I mean, they'll look at the film and you don't want to stop guys from being who they are on the court, but also it wasn't necessary in those moments. It just wasn't necessary.
Chad has played a lot of games to understand. Hey, I have to make the high percentage play here. Right.
That's it.
We're playing from behind. I have to make the high percentage play. I can't get cute.
Yeah, it's kind of like, when a guy has, on fast break, some guys, again, instead of going for the flashy dunk that you have a chance to miss, they should lay it in easy and move on.
Yeah.
Right? Just lay it in easy and move on. And I felt like he had the easy play was there. And those couple plays in a game like this, I mean, they lost by 11. Right? The causality to getting those 6 points and taking maybe 6 points off the board for Kentucky, scoring because they scored on some of those plays that weren't made. Yeah. It that closes the gap in this game, and it may still be ugly, but you win. Mm-hmm. On a night where you're already struggling.
Yeah.
You hurt yourself when you don't take the easy plays.
Right.
And they may have been feeling themselves a little bit too much. And I think that this was a humbling.
Sure.
Maybe they needed this. Maybe they needed this loss to say, hey, we haven't lost it. We just lost in our own arena now.
Mm-hmm.
So to make the routine play and move on.
Yeah.
So that's why I saw last night. They're still an extremely talented team that I think has the ability to go deep into the tournament. And give Kentucky credit, man. Like, look, this is not an easy environment to come in and play in.
Right.
Like, I thought that they did a good job in the beginning of the game of just kind of sticking to their guns and doing what they do. And, again, taking the simple play.
Right.
They rebounded well. They did some things well in this game that ultimately led to them winning if Auburn was going to play the way that they played. So I don't want to take credit away from Kentucky and the game that they play. Anybody who comes into Neville and gets a win, you did something.
Right. Kentucky played the best game that they played all year, and they need credit for that. Like they deserve credit. They
deserve credit for that. Yeah.
Now, whether or not that best game from them should have been enough to win in Neville if we played up to our standard, I still think we should have been able to win that game, but we didn't. We didn't hit the open shots. We turned the ball over way too much. And I mean, how many times can you shoot less than 30% from three at the volume we were shooting from three?
It didn't get better either. Like, look, they ended the half 28% from the field and finished the game 30% from the field.
Yeah.
So they never got off that shooting slump that they were on. But there were plays there to be made that just weren't made.
And it was plays close around the basket. Like, to me, those are some of the more demoralizing misses there. Much more than missing a three-pointer, because Auburn has had games where they've shot poorly from beyond the arc, but because they played so well inside, they were still able to pull out some wins. Nothing was working for Auburn. And so, to me, those are some of those rare games where that occurs. But again, that's something that we're sure they're going to have to clean up. Let's talk about because Phil Petway is asking. No, we haven't talked about Aiden. There was a comment made about Aiden. Mm-hmm. Thoughts about Aiden Holloway at this point?
Oh man, look, he's a freshman, and he's going through some this big boy basketball, right? Shooters get in slumps. And I was happy to see him go to the bucket a couple times last night and get some tough buckets. Mm-hmm. He's going to break out of this. And when he does, Auburn will be doubly dangerous. But without him and Trey Donaldson being effective last night, it was going to be really hard to beat Kentucky.
Right.
So, I'm not really down on Aiden Holloway. I think he's a fantastic player. He's gifted. He can shoot, but guys go into slumps, and Auburn is fortunate that they're not in a position this year where they're 100% dependent on him to not be in a slump to score. It would have been nice if he could have filled what Trey normally has been doing. Then maybe they win last night.
If ever there was a game to break out of a slump. Right. This was it.
That was it. Yeah, and it just wasn't there really, but it was tough all the way around. So I'm not putting the load of that on Aiden. Yeah.
No. I'm just saying there's been opportunities for Aiden to remind us, Hey, I am that guy that was heralded when he came to Auburn.
Yeah.
And so and there will be more opportunities. You just hope that he's in the and you can see he's in his head, body language wise,
Yeah.
when
Right.
a shot doesn't
He's thinking.
fall.
He's
You
thinking
know
a
what I
lot.
mean? And so I hate to see a kid like that there who's had uber confidence. Again, you're playing at the next level. I'm just hoping that he's able to figure some things out. And to your point, Mike, Auburn is at a good place where they don't have to depend on his production. Uh, be nice to have it in a game like this, but you've been blessed to have guys like Trey Donaldson, even Denver Jones coming over to the point and running some point and being the primary ball handler at times. Auburn has been blessed with depth, and so you just hope he's able to figure it out because of that.
Yep.
Let's talk about Jay Will. Jay Will, it was reported, I believe John Rothstein of CBS Sports tweeted that Jalen Williams could be out for a couple of weeks. It's kind of getting close to turning time. Jay Will himself tweeted that he'll be fine. Seems like this is next man up, gentlemen.
Yeah. They talked about how deep this team was. Now it's time to show it. Right.
It's Chaney Johnson time.
It is. And it also means potentially Aiden great time to break out of your slump.
Yeah.
Find some scoring. They're going to have to play around with the lineups a lot with Jay Will. He's such a versatile player, but he also plays both sides of the floor extremely well. So you're losing one of your best defensive players as well. And they're going to have to find the energy that they're going to miss because he's not on the floor. So, this is a senior guy who brings a lot of, he kind of holds this team together in a way. They rally around Jay Will, man. And his 3-point shooting has been a blessing from God to Bruce Pearl. Him being able to stretch the floor and play inside out and, play with his back to the basket, but also square up and step back and do all these things. Yeah, you lose a lot there. He's been one of the best players in the SEC over the last couple months since SEC play started. So glad he's okay.
Yeah.
I'm a alley-oop this to you, pun intended. But one of the things that I've alluded to for this team, again, to complement what Janai Broome is able to do, because Janai is pretty consistent with his production. You needed a for sure number 2 scorer, and that was Jay Will. In the games that Jay Will didn't show up, those have equated to losses for us.
Right.
This game was no exception with him being injured and going out. So losing that number 2 scorer, who are you looking to step up to make up for some of that production?
Well, I would look at Denver as the shooter he is, and he has actually come into form this season, but yesterday it just wasn't there. I think Chaney can do a little more. A lot of the wide open early. He still played reasonably well, but I don't think the shooting was great for anybody yesterday.
No, it wasn't. I mean, he chipped in 12 points, but it was on 3 of 11 shooting.
Yeah. So I look at Denver. I look at Chaney. Chaney's role has actually expanded as he's gotten his feet up underneath him. And both of those guys being transfers who have played at this level already and they're here, I think it makes sense to me, and especially with Aiden. Aiden hadn't played this level at all. It's just not going to be a year one thing, and that's okay. But with the transfers, it was like a 1/3 of the season, half the season thing, and then they found their footing. But Chaney's kind of been stuck into the minutes bracket that made sense for him, honestly, at his size. When you got Jay Will, more experience, a more dynamic scorer, well, you're kind of behind him. And that's okay because we were getting what we needed from Jay Will most of the time. Chaney, this is a huge opportunity. You've got the size, you've got the athleticism, the leaping ability to finish at the rim like Jay Will does. He doesn't have the outside shot that Jay Will does. So that won't be something that's in his repertoire. But as far as about 10 feet out, maybe 8 feet out, getting down there, backing somebody down and turning around and posting up, no, Chaney's got that. Rising up on just a dribble drive and finishing, Chaney's got that. I expect to see some duplication in some of Jay Will's, what he was allowed on ISO stuff and stuff like that. I expect Chaney to get some of that. Denver, if he's going to be running point, here's the thing. I don't know if where's Denver best? We might need Denver because Aiden hadn't really come around. So we may need Denver to run point with the second unit. Or if Trey's hurt, we may need Denver to run point with the first unit. I still don't know if that's the best distribution of Denver's skills. I'm not sure. And I don't know if the coaches know completely yet. They're going to have to figure it out.
I like him with the ball in his hand. I like him getting. I like him having more touches, right? Because early in the season, especially when he wasn't a primary ball handler, he just kind of was lost, right, in the offense. That hasn't happened a lot lately, but again, he's getting more touches. So interesting enough, his production is going up. I like him as being a primary. I like him getting more touches. I like him being more involved in the offense, in my opinion. But go ahead, B.
But yeah, they're just going to have to figure out how they want to run that because it's so different, man. You figure, oh, well, here's the play, here's the point guard, you get it there. Yeah, if only it was that simple. If only it was that simple. Denver's going to be able to, he might not be the distributor that Trey is. I'm pretty sure he won't be because he hasn't run point like that his whole college career. Aiden, if he can't get you 8 to 10 points a game with the opportunities that he is given, because Bruce lets him. It's like, hey man, you got the ball in your hands, figure it out. He doesn't handcuff him, which I think will be to his advantage later. For right now though, if he can't hit shots, if he either can't get open because he's falling a little too in love with the outside shot, or he can't hit the outside shot when he gets it, then what do you do? What do you do? Like I have no idea how they are going to figure out rotations from here, because you're down one man, Jay Will, who was a huge contributor in terms of minutes and points. So you lose that production. If Chaney's going to fill in his minutes, then all right, Chaney was on the floor a certain amount of minutes in his backup role. How do you distribute that out? They got a lot to look for in terms of combination of players and what they did with who on the floor, and they've got to reconfigure all of it because Jay Will went down. And I mean, we have the talent and we do have the depth. So I don't think we should fall off a cliff, but it's a huge void to try to fill, especially at this point in the season when people had kind of settled into their roles. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just
Yeah, what I would hope, the thing with Aiden, getting back to him, because we've mentioned him as a potential guy who could provide some of that production, is the thing that the silver lining with him is that, again, it's confidence in his shot not falling. Kid hasn't been a turnover machine. He's taking care of the ball, and it's not like he's been a liability defensively. Right. If he can figure out better shot selection and doesn't have to force some shots, or if he gets into some of the mid range, because he can drive, he can drive the basket. I think finishing around the basket, given his size, has been tough. But finding a mid range jumper or floater, or something like figuring out how to score in those areas, I think will be beneficial for him and get him into sort of a rhythm to where those shots do begin to start falling for him. Yeah. I think coming out cold and just popping threes is going to be a tough proposition for any guy. I don't care how well he can shoot the ball, especially given how a game like Kentucky, how close that can be, or if we're playing from behind, those shot selections become even more important. So I'm hoping that they can figure out how to get him going in that regard. Mike G, any other comments about the void that needs to be filled in Jay Will's absence?
Yeah, look, man, this is Bruce Pearl's job. Figure out how to get the right guys in the right spot. $50 million, man, is what they gave him. I have confidence that Bruce Pearl can do it. He has been just he's probably been the best coach on the Plains for a while. And it's a tie between him and Butch Thompson.
Yeah, I'm about to say Butch Thompson.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, Butch Thompson.
He says hi. He says hi, Mike.
But I think they'll figure this out. This team is deep. They have statistically one of the best benches in the country. They get more points from their bench than any other team, just about any other team in the NCAA. So you've got to lean into that a little bit more. And somebody, whether it's Chaney, somebody's just got to step up. That's it. If Denver's hitting his shots, they played around with him at point. They'll figure out a rotation. I think that works. He's such a good coach. I'm not anticipating them not being able to figure something out in Jay Will's absence and get him back for the tournament.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's get to some of you guys' comments before we get out of here. We already had that comment from Chris there. JJ Brandon says, I'm worried about the psychological effects on Jay Will. He doesn't play well when he plays timid. concerns about Jay Will when he returns in terms of favoring that knee, gentlemen?
Yeah, man. These guys, a lot of them work with sports psychologists for this reason. Remember when Flan got hurt and then came back and he just looked not the same guy, right? We'll see. But I
depending
doubt
on the severity of some of these injuries, like if you tear your Achilles, man, it's just like goodness gracious.
It's tough. It's
you know
tough,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
But
I'm not sure this is that. So like,
Right.
Get healthy and do what you need to do. As long as he doesn't feel rushed back, I think he'll play confident on that knee.
Well said. I agree with that. Brad Browning says Chad Baker-Mazara's behind the back passes. Like, bro,
It was pretty frustrating to watch a couple of those in a row. Like, and in a game where momentum was hard to get.
Right.
It's tough saying that on those passes, but it certainly didn't help.
Yeah, man.
Phil says he this is his rotation here: Trey, Denver, KD, Chaney, and Janai. And he commented also saying with Chad Baker-Mazara coming off the bench in this game. So Chris Moore and Chad Baker-Mazara will be coming off the bench in his lineup.
Yeah, hopefully Trey gets healthy, and then this is a possibility. But if he's going to play 11 minutes,
well, he was in foul trouble too, Mike.
He was definitely in foul trouble. He didn't look himself out there.
Yeah. Lawrence Robinson says, and that was Lawrence's point there. Blake Patterson says we will see Kentucky again. Hopefully in the SEC tournament, we will get our get back against them.
Yeah.
Ike Jones says UK only scored 70. This wasn't their best game of the season. It was just Auburn's worst offensive home game of the season.
That is a fact. They held a team that's been scoring a lot of points to not a lot of points. So there was a chance for them to win this. 59 points from Auburn is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. We just scored 101. That's crazy.
On South Carolina, like they dropped a whole century on South Carolina.
South Carolina got exposed this week.
Yeah, this was anomalous. It's college basketball. You're gonna lose some games, man. Like there's still already a 20-win team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Think about where we are. Like we're down and like, oh my God, what did we do? We got 20 wins. Right. So it's like it's the floor for Auburn basketball has been raised so significantly. And so for us to still be talking about the fact that, can you imagine 10 years ago losing someone like Jay Will would have done to the season? Right? Like there's no one behind Jay Will. Like the fact that we are naming several different guys who can step in and fill in his production, like we're in a good place as a program, and we owe that to Bruce Pearl and the coaching staff.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, it's that time. Mike, what we giving away, sir?
We're giving away a mug, man. We are giving away a mug. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments to get into this thing, man. In the spirit of Ike Jones, we are not waiting. We're getting this. As we're talking, the women are getting kicked off on SEC Network Plus right now versus Alabama. Hope to have Christy Curry looking crazy. Steph, are you here?
Where you at?
Must be here to win. But Steph, holler at us in the comments so that we can get you that mug here. But yes, Auburn's women are playing Alabama on the road right now. They put the whoop on these girls in Neville. And going out, the significance of this win would be they surpassed last year's SEC win total.
Right.
Johnny Harris took over a winless SEC squad.
Right.
They won 0 SEC games the year before she got to Auburn. They won 2 in year 1. They won 5 in year 2. And they've already won 5 in year 3. So you get the win tonight. You get a big road win. Auburn moves further off the bubble and into that NCAA tournament, baby.
That's what's up.
They've been so much fun to watch this year when they're on. Honestly, Scott Grayson has been one of the best players in all of college basketball these last 2 months. She is absolutely balling, averaging over 20 points a game in conference play. They just got to go out and just find a way to play well on the road, man, and get a win. If the role players can step up, it's going to be fun to watch. Auburn sports is in a great, great era right now outside of football. Like, the Olympic sports are doing well. I mean, I'm not. You understand what I'm saying? Like, Like,
Auburn's in a great era outside of football.
yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that football is the only thing, is what I meant, right?
Right.
Like, there's
Yeah.
stuff here.
We're in
Steph's here.
everything.
Steph's here. Steph, email us business at the War Report. Steph, I don't know if Steph's a girl or a guy, but look, email us regardless. This mug isn't gender specific; it's gender neutral. So, Steph, business at the War Report. Email us your address so we can get you out that mug. This is brought to you by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Also, want to give a special shout out and give B a chance to talk about show sponsor Bet US. B, tell the people about Bet US.
Bet US. You know the tournament's coming up soon. The SEC tournament's coming up soon. Maybe it's a little too unpredictable to make those bets during the regular season. As you can see, stuff can go haywire. But when we get to these neutral sites, and we got the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, that's where you get to make your money. Bet US is our sponsor. They have 24-hour payouts, which is important. You don't want to have to wait too long to get your money. And they also have a 125% sign-up bonus. So you sign up with the link. It's going to be in the description of this video. You use that, we get a little credit, and what you get is to double your money. More than double your money, 125%. So you put 50 in there, and you're going to get a total of 112 in some fraction.
Good math.
Quick math. You know what I'm saying? But it's the best way to get in and get active with your bets quickly. 24-hour customer service as well. So if you got an issue with a deposit, with a withdrawal, with trying to make a bet, they're there for you. They've got a number that people answer the phone, not just a slow chat, not just a menu. So that's our sponsor. We are riding with them. We encourage you to do the same. Get on, place those bets at BetUS.
And Mike G, tell the people what they need to be doing in the offseason, sir.
Yeah, become a patron member. You guys know the drill. Hit that join button and to help us keep the good work of the War Report going. If you like some of this extra content we're bringing you guys, we're live at games. Look, Ike is in Tuscaloosa right now, so Godspeed to him being in that place. But he's covering women's basketball live for us, and we're bringing you guys fresh perspectives. Your patron memberships help us keep that work going. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. You guys have done a great job with this. So many gifted memberships every week that we see going out, giving people behind-the-scenes War Report content. Check out the War Report Podcast Network, Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank show sponsor Golden's Cast Iron. Guys, go to goldenscastiron.com. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. We love you guys for going there and supporting Golden's. They make great products. They make the fire pit that we sat around for our firesides. So if you got a backyard and you want to spruce that thing up, man, goldenscastiron.com will get you there.
And guys, before you get out of here, please be sure to share this conversation and content with your friends, other Auburn fans. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. You can find us on X, IG, Facebook at The War Report. We're also on TikTok as TW Report. That's it for now, guys. We will definitely catch you in the morning with the morning drop. Until then, enjoy the rest of your beautiful weekend. And as always, where you go?
Where you go?